Hello everyone, I am Slow Rider. Welcome to another video. I hope you're having a great day. This was going to be a nice simple video where I go out for a ride and record stuff and come back and edit it all together, and it was going to be nice and easy. And then I had a human interface issue with my camera, which meant half of it didn't get recorded. Yeah. So instead, you've got some footage of me riding around and a voiceover, which I'm sure is perfectly acceptable for most people. Please don't hate me. This video is going to be about an app called Calimoto. Most of you probably will have heard of that app. Quite a few of you will probably be using it, but if you're not using it and you're not aware of what it is essentially a satellite navigation app. But it's designed for bikers to find the more twisty roads out there to make their rides more enjoyable. There are two versions of the app. There is the free version, which is the one I have, and it's what I've used for the purpose of this video. I've downloaded it myself, created it my own account. I'm not sponsored to do this, I'm not paid to do this. I'm just doing this off my own back because I think it's an interesting idea for an app. But there is a premium version which is £43 per year. There are benefits to having that version, which I can highlight some of the features of. Ultimately, whether you think it's worth paying the £43 a year for it is entirely subjective. It's entirely up to you. It's your opinion, basically. But hopefully I can give you an idea of whether the free version is worth having or not. And then you can decide whether you want to go further and have the premium one. So a few things to go without saying. With satellite navigation apps, you want to have it mounted on your bike somewhere where you can see the screen of your phone or other device so that you get the full experience of it, and it will help you actually find where you're going. Being an app on the phone that uses location services, it is going to use up the battery. If you combine that with any Bluetooth equipment they're using at the time, like speakers or communication systems, obviously that's going to take a lot of battery use, so you'll want to have it plugged in somewhere, ideally. I think that's what I would do anyway. The app doesn't particularly like places where you swap from driving on the left to driving on the right. Obviously in the UK that's not a big issue. We all drive on the same side of the road. But if you are in a part of the world where that does happen, bear in mind the app won't give you a route that crosses that border point where you change from driving on the left to driving on the right. Minor thing, probably not worth mentioning, but I have. There you go. The free version of the app has a slight limitation in that you get an area of the country. It's not the whole country that you get to poodle around on for free. It's just an area of it. I'm based in Greater Manchester, which means primarily I'm using the north of England free area, which is the border of Scotland down to places like Northampton, Bedford. Actually, I think Bedford might be just outside the area, but Northampton's in it because Silverstone is in it. It doesn't include Peterborough, it doesn't include Banbury, so you get an idea of where the southern edge of that northern area is. Obviously, it goes from the east coast across to the west coast and the Welsh border. It's a little annoying in that regard because, obviously, being Manchester-based, I might want to go into Wales occasionally, and the free area doesn't cover it. So, there you go. Minor niggle number one, thrown in there, bonus. The last thing I want to make note of, obviously, is that this app does find twisty roads as a general rule. If you're in a big town or a city, the chances are those twisty roads are going to be back roads. There are ways around this issue that I will get to in a bit, but it is something that you need to bear in mind because it could become important for you. Those, I think, are all the special mentions. So now we're going to jump from road planning to route planning. Yes, one of the big pros is how simple it is to actually set a route on this thing. I know other YouTubers have mentioned this, and it's something that I think the app makers kind of promote themselves. It's as simple as, in some cases, just pressing the random button, and it'll pick a route, and you can go and ride it. Obviously, if you've got the free version, then the random route is just going to be in your free area, but yeah, it's that, you know, it can be that simple. You just click random, boom, done. Brilliant. The next easiest one is you can set a direction you want to head out of town. You can set a distance of how far you want to go as a maximum, and then hit calculate, and it will bring up a route. Minor point to know on that is that if you want to do a route of more than 120 miles, you need the premium version of the app rather than the free version of the app. But 120 miles on twisty roads is still going to take you a good couple of hours, possibly even 3 or 4. So, you know, you're still going to get a good ride out of the app on the free version, I think, for that. You can also plan the route in the more traditional way. Bear in mind, however, that it uses OpenStreetMaps, so it won't know individual business names necessarily. It won't necessarily know the individual house numbers on a road, but you can set it by road, you can set it by town, you can set it by postcode, and you can select on a map as well where the start, destination, and any waypoints are. So there is plenty of options there. Now, the postcode one you need to be a little bit careful of. Any sat-nav where you're putting in a postcode, you need to be a little bit careful, but particularly the ones that work on OpenStreetMaps, because one of the places I go to semi-regularly, if you put in the postcode for it, it will navigate you onto a motorway and then tell you you've arrived, which obviously you don't want to do. So the postcode thing is a general area thing. It's not something the app necessarily is at fault for, but it's just, again, a quick note on that one. But the actual route planning otherwise is dead simple. Let's say if you want an exact point, you can, on the website, click on the part of the map, or on the app you can touch a part of the map, and it will ask you if you want to set it as the start, the destination, or a waypoint. I think it does that really well, so it's a really, really easy way to set it up. The second thing I'm going to say about route planning is the waypoints, and I love the way it does the waypoints. I'm going to be honest with you, I think, aside from this, how easy it is to set them up, it tries to calculate what you want to do with the waypoints, so in most cases you won't have to tell it which order you want the waypoints to be in. Sometimes you do. If you're doing a particularly complex route and you've got a rough idea of exactly what you want to do, yeah, you might need to reorder the waypoints occasionally, but if you're just going out for a ride, it tries to work out which is the best order to have those waypoints, which I think is really clever. I say, to actually make the waypoints, you're just clicking on the map and telling it you want that as a waypoint, or you type in a postcode or anything like that. It's dead simple to do it. The route between the waypoints, with most navigation systems and with Google Maps and things like that, you can say you want to avoid highways, or you want to avoid toll roads, or you want to avoid ferries, that sort of thing. There are some options with this in the free app, or certainly from a basic setup point of view. I'm not going into loads of settings as such, but on the basic setup, you can select the fastest route without highways, twisty routes, or if you buy the premium version of the app, you also get super twisty routes. This isn't just for the whole journey, as you would find for most satellite navigation apps. This you set up between waypoints as well. So you could choose the fastest route from the start to waypoint 1, the twisty route to waypoint 2, the fastest route away from a highway to waypoint 3, then another set of twisty routes to waypoint 4, and then the fastest route back home to your destination or wherever. You can do that. You can mix and match it depending on exactly what you want to do. I think that's a fantastic feature. I really do. I love that. I wish more places actually did it. A couple of points for during your actual riding in regard to waypoints. First is that if you find you need a petrol station or something like that on the way, you can add in waypoints during the journey. You don't need to stop the navigation or do anything like that. There's a menu to go into to add a petrol station, or whatever, and then you can select the petrol station and it will just add it into the route seamlessly, which I think is brilliant. The second thing to note on waypoints is that, unlike some other systems, not necessarily all systems, but the ones I've tried using, if you have a waypoint or a midway destination on other apps, on this one, once you get to it, you don't have to tell it you're continuing the journey. It just it knows that you've got there, and it goes, well, okay, great, that's your waypoint done, let's move on. You don't have to touch these screens or anything. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's one of the things that I dislike about using Google Maps for stuff, is that often you have to set a destination, a couple of destinations, and when you get to that destination you have to reset the start of the navigation, which if you're riding round is a pain in the backside. I know you can set waypoints or routes or whatever on Google Maps, but if you're doing it by destinations, it's a pain in the rear. This doesn't have that. It's just you get to the waypoint and it goes, okay, you got there, and nothing happens. You just carry on riding. It's actually pretty cool. The next positive point I'm going to bring up on is that you can share your rides, or the routes for them. In any case, there are two ways to do this. The first is you have an actual share option. So once you've created the route, you can share it with your friends or anyone else that you know the username of by clicking the share button, putting in the username of the person, and then sending it to them. It's that simple, and then they've got it and they can use it. You don't have to have written the route at that point, you just have to have created it and saved it, and you can share it to whoever you know the username of. The only slight downside is that you do have to have to know their username, but I don't think that's a big thing because they're probably with you and they can probably tell you what it is. So yeah, I think that's really good. The second way, after you've done the ride, you can publish your ride to the app and the website, and then other people can see that ride and they can go and do it themselves. They can click on the map, it will bring it up in their app or on the website, and yeah, they can adjust it on the website or they can navigate on the app. It's really simple to do. You also get to see any pictures that they've saved through the app as well, so you get to see that on the route, and if there are points of interest nearby, it should highlight them as well. But again, I think that's a really good way of allowing people to share the routes that are actually really good. You can rate it really highly, and yeah, I think that's brilliant. I did mention that you can take photos during the route, and if you do it through the app, press the photos button, it'll bring up your camera. You can take pictures which will save to your phone anyway, but it'll also then add it to the route on your app as well. So at the end of your ride, you can see where you took pictures and which pictures you took, and yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Also, during the planning and riding, the navigation, the actual routes that it thinks are good biking routes have a little outline around them, depending on how good they are. At least I believe it's how good they are, which varies from a sort of a yellowy mustard colour through to red. In the route planning stage, that's great because it allows you to see what routes might actually be good, and on the riding bit you can see whether you're in a good riding bit or not, or what they think is a good riding bit or not, and you can use that to judge whether you think it's a good app or not, I guess. But I do like the fact that it highlights that. I think that's really good. The display for the app is pretty standard for a navigation app, but I do quite like it. Obviously, it is OpenStreetMaps, which is one of the more basic map services, but what do you expect for open source software? You do get at the top of the screen whatever your next instruction is, so turn left, turn right, second exit of the roundabout, etc. You get an indication of how far away that is based on your location signal from your phone. It's not super accurate, but it's accurate enough. You also get an indication of how many miles are left on the route, so you can give yourself an idea of how long you might have left in the route. So say your route starts at 100 miles, at 50 miles left, you know you're halfway through the route. Not necessarily halfway through the time, but halfway through the route. It's a nice little thing. I quite like it. Maybe you're running low on fuel, and you've got an idea of how long your fuel will last. Well, there you've got an indication of how long the route has got left, so you can decide whether you need to add in the petrol station or not. So I do think that's a good feature, having that remaining mileage figure on there. The other thing you get on the display is an arrival time. I will come to that later. On the Audible side of things, one of the things I do like is every hour of riding, in inverted commas, you get a warning saying that you've been riding for that many hours. I do like that because it's very easy to get distracted and forget how long you've been on the bike for. If you're really enjoying the ride, it can be very easy to get over an hour or over 2 hours on the bike. It's important to take a break, so I like that there's a warning there to tell you that. I think it would be better if after the first hour it's every half an hour, but even at every hour it's a good feature to have. Minor point to note is that if you don't pause the navigation, it will just count from when you started the navigation. So if you took a half-hour break but didn't pause the navigation, it would continue counting through that half hour and then continue on for your ride, because it won't know that you've stopped. So just a minor point there, but I do like the fact that it tells you that you've been riding for that long, so that you've got an idea of when you should take a break. On the flip side of the audible descriptions, they're not all good. Some of the instructions, and I'm presuming it comes from the data source OpenStreetMaps, they're not the best descriptions in the world. I've come across crossroads, which granted they're not your traditional 90-degree turn crossroads, but the audio description for straight on is turn right, then turn left. I don't think it's the app's fault necessarily, but it is something to bear in mind, and it's one of the reasons why you might want to be able to see the screen when you or be able to sort of glance at the screen of your phone or other device when you're actually riding about, even if it is just a quick glance, just to check where you're actually going. Some of the descriptions, as I say, can be a little bit odd. As another example of that, there was a junction I came up to where it wasn't quite a crossroads. It was more of two T-junctions being very close together, or an offset crossroads. It was virtually straight ahead, and had I been describing it, I would have said something like straight ahead, or slight left, or slight right, or something like that. But again, the description actually given over the audio was turn right, turn left. And without the visual representation on the actual screen on the map, I probably would have gone wrong at that point as well. There was a junction where it's essentially 5 roads meeting. Obviously, I'm on one of the roads, and then you've got a left turn, about 90-degree left turn, a slight left, a slight right, and then a 90-degree right turn. And the audible description I got on that was turn left. And the slight left and the slight right, there was no obvious straight ahead. I know that it gives the audible descriptions of slight left and slight right because I've heard it at other junctions, but I didn't hear it at this one. Now I look down at the map, and it's not the 90-degree left turn, it's the slight left turn that it wanted me to take. But as I say, the audio description was left turn. So, so I don't think it's the app necessarily, it's the source of data, probably, that has that fault. But because the app is using it, I have to say that the audio description in the app is sometimes wrong. Another point to make on the audible directions, and I don't know if it applies to the maps as well, it probably does, but if you lose signal on your ride, it will stop giving you the audio directions, or the audible directions, until it picks up the signal again. And you'll know it picked up the signal again because it will say recalculating route. Even if it gives you the same route from where you are, you'll hear that audible message. But it doesn't tell you that it's lost signal. So you could be riding along this road and then suddenly recalculating route, do a right turn, which is not ideal, but again, I guess in a way it's the phone losing signal rather than the app losing signal, so possibly there's not much they can do about it in that sense. I will say at this point there is an offline version of the app within the premium app, so if you want the offline maps and the offline directions, you need to pay the £43 per year for the premium app. It's not on the free version. Whether you consider that a good thing or not, I don't know. I mean, it's a good enough app. Most satellite navigation apps have this sort of problem, but I've never noticed it with other apps. I have noticed it with this one. Maybe some of the other apps have got a workaround somewhere. I don't know. On the subject of live data, kind of closely related, because it's OpenStreetMaps, apparently there are no speed limits within that data. So you can't have a warning on. You don't get a warning on the app, and apparently you can't have a warning on the app because of that data that they're using for what the speed limits are. A warning or a reminder or anything like that. It's something I do like on Waze. I don't often need it, to be honest, but it's nice to have it there if you haven't seen a speed limit sign for some time and it's not necessarily obvious what the speed limit actually is. But in the Calimoto app you don't have that because of the dataset that they use. That's a minor niggle. As I say, you shouldn't need it. You should know what the speed limit is for the road that you're on, if nothing else. Where it does get a little bit more serious is for traffic that's building up for roadworks, which again it doesn't give you information for, and most importantly, road closures. Where there's a road closure for roadworks, the app doesn't know about it. Now, it could simply be that you ride past the junction where you were meant to turn off because that road's closed, and the app will recalculate a new route for you. But sometimes the initial recalculations are basically go around the block and go back to the road closed. So I think you've got to realise when that's happening and work around it. That could mean that you end up having to stop and looking at a map to see if there's another way round the closed road before you can then continue using the app, because it hasn't calculated the route in as, how can I say this, in as an intelligent way as you might set the route. It's the limitation of the programming, the limitation of the data. It can't do it. Now, you may remember I mentioned the arrival time at your destination on the visual display. I said the visual display was a good thing, and I'll come back to the arrival time. This is the point where I'm going to come back to it, because I've just said it doesn't know the speed limits. That's the reason given for not putting a speed limit warning up there. The data isn't there for speed limits. If there's no data for speed limits and there's no data live for how fast people are going through those roads, how do we get an arrival time? Now, on the routes that I've actually done, the arrival time constantly changed and it didn't get earlier. In some cases I was doing a 30 miles an hour road at 30 miles an hour and I was still losing time to the arrival time. It was still getting later and later. The video that you're seeing now on that ride, it started as a 3-hour ride. Actual riding time, you know, I'm taking into account the time that I actually stopped for a break. Actual riding time increased by an hour over the length of that journey. So instead of a 3-hour ride, it was actually a 4-hour ride in total. So if you're basing a ride on the total time it's going to take rather than the distance, bear in mind the time is not accurate. And you may need to allow a bit more. I would say allow about a third more, just in case. Obviously in some cases it's going to be more, some cases it's going to be less, but don't just rely on that time, because in my experience it's going to be wrong. Now, as I mentioned in the route planning section earlier, and how good it is to actually, how easy it is to set up, and also in the initial notes, obviously the free version you only get a free area of mappage. You can't set a route outside of that area on the free version. If you want to set a route outside that area, you need the premium version, £43 per year. Otherwise, yeah, you're stuck inside that free area. One of the differences between the website planning software and the app planning software is that the app will actively show you that free area and will not let you plan a route outside of it. So far, and I don't know if there's a setting on the website that I've missed, but the website seems to allow you to set whatever route you want to whatever destination you want. The problem there is that you then save it, you open up the app on your phone, you open up the saved map, and it will instantly say you cannot have that route because it goes outside your free area. I understand the whole model of having the premium app, I understand why they've done it, but that is annoying. That there's nothing on the website to say, or even just to say, hey, we'll allow you to plan this route, but bear in mind, it's not within your area, so you may not be able to use it. That would be a good warning to have, but there doesn't seem to be anything like that, which is, yeah, it's a little annoying, to be honest, but as long as you're aware of that, you can start to plan around it. It does become a bit more of an issue in scenarios where you're sharing maps to other people. If you've, say, got the premium version and the other person's got a free version, you may not be able to, they may not be able to use the route that you've planned because it goes outside their free area. This works in both just sharing a planned route, and also if you're trying to use a route that has been published by someone else. It's a little bit annoying. I can understand if you want to plan the route you need the premium version, but if you're two people riding together and one of them's got the area and the other one hasn't, it's annoying that you can't just share the map. I went down to see my brother. He rides a bike and he had the app. He's got a different free area because he lives in a different part of the country. He had set up the routes. He tried to share them with me, and my app said, no, sorry, it's outside your area, you can't use it. Now, as it happens, I went then on to the Waze app, which meant I could see where all the road closures were. But I really do think that if you're sharing a route that someone else, someone is sharing a route with you that they have set up, or if someone's published a route, you should just be able to use that route. I don't understand why there's a limitation there. It's not like you're setting up the route, you're just using someone else's. I don't know, it's annoying. I mean, you could probably get the route on the website, bring up someone's published route on the website, have a look at it, plan it in Google Maps, and then just ride it. So why you can't just do it for free on this app, I don't know. But, that's the way it is. It seems to be that if it's even just a tiny bit of the route, so if someone with a premium version sets it up and there's maybe a 50-metre section that's outside your free area, you can't use it. That's the way it seems to be. Maybe it isn't exactly like that, but that's the way it seems to be for that, and it seems like shooting yourself in the foot, to be honest. But hey-ho, it's one of those things, On the slightly less important side of things, although you can choose twisty routes, fast routes, and fast routes without highways, and super twisty if you've got the premium version, there doesn't seem to be a way to tell the app what type of bike you've got. This is probably something they haven't thought of. And it's fine, but I could take an adventure bike or even a naked street bike in some cases down roads that I would not take a sports bike down. Some of the routes I've been down have been single track with moss or grass down the centre of the road. I would, and potholes and ruts and all that sort of stuff. I would not take a sports bike down those roads. But the app doesn't differentiate. And there doesn't seem to be a warning of just how bad that is. Maybe I've missed it. Maybe I've misinterpreted what the colours on the map actually mean. But it would be nice to say, hey, I've got a sports bike, keep me away from those roads. Or I've got an adventure bike and I want to go on those roads. That seems like an oversight on my point, from my point of view. The final bit I'm going to bring up as kind of a negative is that the section of the route that you're on isn't highlighted in a different colour. This sounds really petty. I know it sounds really petty, but on one of my rides, the start to waypoint 1 shared a route in common with the waypoint 3 to destination. It shared the same road. So when I'm riding down it, I got to a junction and the route appears to split one way or the other. Obviously, one route is going out to waypoint 1, the other one's coming back from waypoint 3. And the junction where it happened to meet also happened to be a junction where the audio description wasn't very good. So, in hindsight, I probably should have looked at the route more closely before I actually started out. But at that point, there was no way for me to tell which way I was actually meant to go. The audio description was turn right, then turn left. The options on the map were straight ahead or right. And I didn't realise the audio description was dubious or that dubious at this point, so I took the right-hand turn thinking it was that, and no, it wasn't. I was meant to go straight ahead. So, but if the start to waypoint 1 had been a different colour, or if the waypoint 3 to destination wasn't actually highlighted at that point, I would have known exactly which way to go. So it's a minor point, it's a really, really niggly one, but it would be wrong of me not to mention it. And if there was some way of just differentiating that, say a different colour, or maybe an arrow on the actual map to say, hey, go this way, you know, to show exactly what it wants you to do. I know Waze does that. Waze has little arrows on it when it's got an instruction, and you know, it'll tell you separately, just like this app does, what the next instruction is, but on the map it'll have a little arrow to tell you where to go. Maybe something like that would work as well. But yeah, it's a minor niggle, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But that, I mean, that's basically all the points that I'd have brought up. So it's very broadly 5 for and 5 against. So what do I think overall? It fills a hole in the market for sure. There are some really good points there, I think, for actually using it, and I think a lot of the negatives, a lot of the cons, you could probably live with. So overall, I think it's an app that's worth having. Would I use it all the time? No. Would I buy the premium version? Probably no. I mean, there are places where it'll have a logo, it'll have a little icon for something or a little button for something, and you'll click it and it will just bring up a page that says, hey, buy premium for this feature. No idea what the features are in some cases, but apparently you need premium for them. But that's just their marketing model. It doesn't really affect the app as such. But yeah, the features are that I know what they are in the premium version, I wouldn't miss as a general rule. And yeah, the features that I don't know what they are, I haven't used them. So I don't think I would miss them if I didn't have them. You might find differently. So I'm not going to tell you don't buy the premium one, because people will like the premium one. Maybe you go touring all over the place loads, in which case 40 quid for the year or 43 quid for the year is nothing. It's less than £1 a week. I don't go touring outside of this local area as much as I would like to. So yeah, I mean, this year, for example, I think I've been out the area for 2 days. So that's 20 quid a day. That's quite expensive for an app. So it wouldn't have been worth me having it. That's a hindsight thing, of course. I don't know how much I'm going to use it in the next year. Maybe it would be worth it. But yeah, I think the free version is good enough that you don't need the premium version. The premium version is kind of icing on the cake sort of thing. But the actual free app, I like quite a lot. There are lots of bonuses, lots of pluses that make it worth having, and it does fill a market that other sat-navs don't come close to. I know some have tried to with motorbike modes and things like that, but they don't come close to how this app does it. So it is a really good app, I think. It's just a few niggles and a few things that you need to be aware of. They're not game changers, they're not deal breakers, they're just annoying. And probably things that could be fixed, to be honest, if the will was there to do it. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm being overly cruel or overly kind? What do you think of the app? Have you used it? Is it the best thing since sliced bread? Does it predate the sliced bread thing and be the best thing since whatever the best thing before sliced bread was? That make any sense? Probably not. Let me know in the comments section anyway. Like the video if you feel so inclined. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. Slightly blown away by how many people are watching some of my videos and liking and subscribing. But yes, feel free to do all that sort of lovely stuff. I will see you in the next video. Ta-ta for now.